Have you ever felt it? That creeping chill down your spine when you're alone? The kind that tells you someone's watching? I felt it that night, and I'll never forget it. I'd just finished a late workout at Griffin's gym. Nothing fancy, just an old-school spot near the river in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I was drenched in sweat, my muscles burning from an hour of deadlifts and squats. The air outside was thick, that soupy kind of humidity we get down here, and the sky was painted in bruised shades of purple and gray. A storm was rolling in. You could smell it, that sharp electric tang that warns you the sky's about to crack wide open. I didn't mind storms. Hell, I liked them. Something about the rawness of it, the chaos, made the world feel alive. But that night, the storm wasn't the thing to be afraid of. The gym was only a 15-minute walk from my apartment on Oakley Street, and normally I'd just stick to the main road. But the first fat drops of rain hit my skin like cold needles, and within seconds, the sky opened up, pouring down in sheets. I cursed under my breath. My hoodie was already sticking to me, and I hadn't even made it a block. That's when I remembered the pedestrian tunnel under the old train tracks. It wasn't pretty. Graffiti-covered walls, flickering overhead lights, and a constant smell of mildew. But it would cut my walk in half and get me out of the rain. I should have kept to the road. The entrance to the tunnel yawned open, the fluorescent lights inside buzzing and flickering like they were barely clinging to life. The storm outside roared, thunder cracking overhead so loud I felt it in my chest. I pulled my hoodie tighter and stepped in. The rain's pounding softened the second I entered, replaced by the steady drip, drip, drip of water leaking from cracks in the ceiling. My footsteps echoed off the concrete, and for a moment, it was just me and the tunnel, my breath, my heartbeat, my wet sneakers slapping the ground. But then, something changed. It was subtle at first, the kind of thing you catch more with your gut than your ears. The sound of footsteps just half a beat behind mine. I slowed. They slowed. I stopped. The echo stopped, a fraction too late. My mouth went dry. I turned my head just enough to glance behind me. The tunnel stretched back into the darkness, empty. But something felt wrong. The air was thicker, like it was pressing against my skin. I told myself it was nothing, just nerves. The tunnel was playing tricks with the echoes. I forced a chuckle under my breath. God, I sounded shaky, and kept walking. The footsteps started again, but now there was something else. A sound, low and breathy, a chuckle. I froze. This time, I turned fully, my pulse pounding in my ears. "Who's there?" I called, my voice rough, trying to mask the edge of fear creeping in. The only reply was the distant crack of thunder. I scanned the tunnel, just flickering lights, graffiti-stained walls, and puddles shimmering with reflections of the sickly fluorescent glow. But then, a flash. Not of lightning. Something metallic. Something sharp. A shape emerged from the shadows near the wall. A man, tall, broad-shouldered, his clothes soaked through, and his face. God, his face. He was grinning. Not the kind of grin that comes from something funny. No, this was predatory. Wide. Wrong. His teeth flashed, and his eyes, dark, sunken, locked with mine. And he was holding a knife. My body reacted before my brain did. I turned and ran. My sneakers slapped against the wet concrete, water splashing up my legs. The tunnel was longer than I remembered. Way longer. And every instinct screamed at me to move faster. But behind me, the footsteps were getting louder. He was chasing me. The sound of his shoes, hard, fast, relentless, was like a hammer driving spikes into my skull. And then he laughed. A low, wet, horrible sound that echoed around me, making it impossible to tell how close he was. The end of the tunnel, the exit, was a hazy rectangle of night and rain. Still too far. My legs burned, but adrenaline kept me moving. I risked a glance back. He was closer. Too close. I felt something cold and sharp graze my arm. A near miss, followed by his ragged breath, so loud I could hear it over the rain. My chest screamed for air, and panic blurred my vision, but there, finally, the mouth of the tunnel. The moment I hit the edge, I did the only thing my body would let me do. I ducked low and threw my shoulder back, ramming it into his chest with everything I had. The impact sent us both sprawling. I hit the wet pavement, pain exploding through my knee, but I didn't stop. I scrambled to my feet and bolted. Behind me, I heard a vicious curse and the sickening scrape of shoes on concrete as he tried to recover. I didn't look back. I didn't want to see him again. I just ran. The street was deserted. Who the hell would be out in this weather? My lungs burned and my body screamed to stop, but I didn't. I didn't stop until I crashed through the door of my apartment building, my hand fumbling with my keys. I slammed the door behind me, locked it, and collapsed against it, gasping, shaking, dripping with rain and fear. For the longest time, I sat there, my back against the door, my body shaking so hard my teeth chattered. My arm throbbed. I looked down to see a shallow cut, not deep but enough to make me sick. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, that grin, and heard his footsteps pounding behind me. The next morning, my phone buzzed, a notification from the local news. My stomach turned to ice. Local police arrest man linked to multiple attacks near Riverfront Tunnel. The mugshot. Same face, same grin. The report said he'd been stalking people, waiting for storms to cover the sound of his approach. He was found not far from my building, hiding in a service alley, dripping wet. I haven't taken that shortcut since. Hell, I barely walk alone anymore. People say lightning never strikes twice, but I'm not so sure. When the rain starts falling and the sky cracks open, I remember his laugh, his footsteps, and how damn close he was. So, if you're ever caught in a storm and the road ahead feels too long, don't take the shortcut. You might not make it out. Storms hide many things. Footsteps, screams, even evil. Mason learned that the hard way, but he wasn't the only one. They always say that storms cleanse the earth, but I know better. Sometimes storms just bring things out. Things that should have stayed hidden. I heard about what happened in Baton Rouge on the news. A man chased through a pedestrian tunnel, barely made it out. The reporter said the police caught the guy, the tunnel stalker. But the whole thing made me shiver. And I thought, poor guy, what a nightmare. I didn't know that my own nightmare was waiting for me. My name is Caroline Hayes. I live alone in an old colonial-style house in Savannah, Georgia. It's the kind of house people call charming because of the creaky floors and wide windows. I call it quiet. Too quiet since my husband passed 2 years ago. That night, the storm hit with no warning. Coastal storms are like that, rolling in fast and angry, like the sky's got a score to settle. By 7 p.m., the wind was screaming through the oaks, and the rain was coming down so hard it blurred the world outside my windows. The power flickered twice, then died. Just like that. The whole house plunged into darkness. I sighed, more annoyed than scared. I've lived through plenty of hurricanes. This was just noise and water. I found my way to the kitchen drawer by memory and lit a few candles. The soft, flickering glow chased the shadows into the corners. The old house seemed to breathe around me, wood settling, windows rattling. I grabbed my phone. No signal. Figures. So, I sat in the living room scrolling through old photos. Me and my husband Daniel on the beach, hiking, laughing. The kind of memories that make your heart ache in the quiet. That's when I heard it. Crunch. The soft, deliberate sound of footsteps on gravel. My driveway. I froze. My heart stuttered, and I strained to listen over the storm. Maybe a tree branch fell, maybe it was the wind kicking up stones. But then it came again. Crunch. Someone was walking. I felt my throat tighten. Who the hell would be out there in this weather? My pulse thumped in my ears as I moved, slow and careful, toward the front window. The candlelight trembled with me. I peeked through the curtains just an inch. Just enough. Was it trembling towards my window? I stopped, pulled the curtain, drew in, and heard the theatrical 3-cell. And I saw him, a man standing perfectly still in my driveway. The rain poured down his face, but he didn't move to shield himself. He just stood there, watching. His clothes were plastered to his body, his hair dripping, but it was his eyes. God, his eyes, that locked me in place. Cold, fixed, unblinking. Like he wasn't looking at me, but through me. I felt my body tense with that primal animal instinct. Run, but I didn't. I couldn't. I just stood there, my breath shallow and shaky, hoping the curtain was enough to keep me hidden. Then, as if he could hear my thoughts, his head tilted. Slight, slow, like he knew I was there. The air turned icy around me, my hand clenched the curtain so tightly my fingers ached, and then he moved. One step, two, toward the house. I stumbled back from the window, my heart pounding so hard I felt it in my ears. My eyes darted to the front door, locked. I checked it before the storm hit. I was sure of it. But then, the door handle rattled, a sharp metallic jolt that shot through my chest like a knife. I pressed my back to the wall, my mind racing. I felt the cool wood through my shirt as I slid along the wall, trying to stay out of sight. My heart was screaming, "Call 911!" I grabbed my phone. No signal, no power, no help. The rattling stopped. Silence. I didn't know which was worse, the sound of him trying to get in or the sudden, horrible silence. I stood there, shaking, barely breathing. I listened. The wind howled, rain battered the windows, but I didn't hear footsteps. Did he leave? The thought barely had time to form when I heard something worse. From the back porch. Tap, tap, tap. Like fingers on glass. My stomach flipped. I turned, just my head, toward the sliding glass doors in the dining room. The candlelight barely reached that far, but I could see his shadow. He was there, not trying to break in, not pounding, just standing, watching. I felt cold all over. My body screamed to move, to run, to do anything, but I was frozen in place. I saw his hand rise, slowly, and then he dragged his palm down the glass. Scrap! My breath hitched, my legs trembled. Then he grinned. That's what broke me. That grin. I turned and ran, through the hallway, into my bedroom, slammed the door, locked it. The house was so quiet behind the storm, too quiet. I pressed my back against the door, my breath ragged. My mind was screaming, what does he want? Why is he doing this? Then I heard it. Crunch. Footsteps. But not on the porch. Inside. My vision blurred with panic. The front door was locked. The windows... I never heard glass break. How? The footsteps moved. Slowly. Floorboards creaked under his weight. Closer. I stumbled backward, my body hitting the dresser. My eyes darted to the closet. But something in me knew he'd find me. The footsteps stopped. Right. Outside. My door. I felt it. His presence. Thick. Heavy. So close it felt like the air had weight. Then the handle turned. I gasped and pressed my hand over my mouth to stifle the sound. The handle stopped. No sound, no footsteps, just nothing. The silence was unbearable. My body screamed for air, but I was too terrified to breathe. Then, from under the door, a shadow, and something else, a whisper. I couldn't hear the words, but I felt them, wrong, cold, rotten. Suddenly, a loud bang! The front door, voices, police! My legs buckled and I collapsed against the dresser. I didn't even remember calling them. The next thing I knew, they were breaking the bedroom door open and I was crying. Half out of terror, half out of relief. They searched the house. Nothing. No broken windows, no signs of forced entry. Just muddy footprints leading from the driveway to the porch and ending at the sliding glass door. The police asked if I knew him. I told them I'd never seen him before. And I hadn't. That should have been the end. But the next morning, I found something the police didn't. On the glass of the sliding door, where his hand had been, was my name, written in the condensation. I still don't know how he knew it, or why he chose me, but I know this. Storms don't cleanse, they hide. And sometimes the thing you should fear is what's waiting for you, when the glass is the only thing left between you and it. Storms bring more than just rain. Mason felt it in the tunnel. Caroline saw it at her window. But sometimes, the warning doesn't come from what you see, it comes from what your best friend hears. I've always believed dogs know things we don't. They hear things before we do, smell danger long before it arrives. And sometimes, they try to save us from it. That night, my dog Max saved my life. The storm was already kicking up when I pulled my rig into the driveway. I'd just finished a long haul from Nashville to Asheville, North Carolina, and I was dead tired. The wind was howling through the trees and thunder was already rolling somewhere deep in the mountains. Max was at the door when I walked in, tail wagging, ears up, ready to greet me like always. He's a big old Labrador, 8 years old, and the best damn friend I've got. He's seen me through a rough divorce, long lonely nights on the road, and more bad days than I can count. "Hey buddy," I said, scratching behind his ears. "Looks like we're in for a hell of a night, huh?" I wasn't wrong. By the time I got settled on the couch with a cold beer, the storm was in full swing. Wind slammed against the house, and rain lashed the windows hard enough to sound like gravel. I tried to lose myself in a movie, something easy to unwind with, but I couldn't focus. The whole house felt tense, like the air itself was holding its breath. And then Max started barking. It was sharp, frantic, the kind of bark he gives when someone's at the door, only no one was. I paused the movie. "Hey, Max, what's up, boy?" He was by the sliding glass door, his nose pressed to the glass, ears pinned back, and tail stiff. He barked again, loud, urgent. I frowned. "The hell you see out there?" I grabbed my flashlight from the counter and walked over. Through the glass, the backyard was a blur of wind and rain. The big oak trees swayed like they were gonna rip from the ground, and the old wooden fence, 7 feet tall and solid, rattled with every gust. I didn't see anything, just shadows and storm. "Probably a raccoon," I muttered, but Max wasn't buying it. He barked harder, paused, scratching at the glass like he wanted out. Something felt off. Max doesn't lose his mind over critters. I slid the door open just a crack. The wind hit me like a wall, wet and cold and mean. "Hey, if you're a bear, you better keep moving," I called into the night, trying to shake off the weird tension crawling up my neck. Silence, just the storm screaming through the trees. But then, I heard it. Crunch, over the wind, over the rain. A soft, deliberate sound. Footsteps. The beam of my flashlight swept across the yard and landed on the back fence. I froze. A shape, a man. He was crouched low in the corner where the fence meets the trees. I couldn't see his face, just his silhouette, half hidden by the whipping branches. His clothes clung to him, soaked through, and he was still. Too still. Then the light caught something in his hand. Metal. My stomach knotted. It was a crowbar. My blood ran cold. "Hey!" I shouted, my voice barely carrying over the wind. "Get the hell out of here!" The man didn't move, didn't run. He just watched. Then, he tilted his head, like a damn animal sizing up prey. Max's growl deepened, low and primal. I felt it in my chest more than I heard it. I didn't wait. I slammed the sliding door shut and locked it. My hands were shaking. My heart was slamming so hard I could barely breathe. I reached for my phone. No bars. "Storms out here always kill the surface. Think, Derek. Think." I killed the lights. The whole house sank into shadow, the storm flickering outside like some sick strobe. I peeked out again. The yard was empty. No. Where the hell did he... Bang! The shed. The old metal shed in the back corner of the yard. I saw the door swing open, slamming against the wall in the wind. The man. He was inside. My throat went dry, my tools, my backup generator, the axe. I had to think fast. I didn't know if he was after me, the house, or what, but I knew he wasn't here by accident, and I wasn't about to sit and wait for him to come to me. I grabbed my old shotgun from the hall closet and pumped a shell into the chamber. My voice was shaking, but I meant every word. "You picked the wrong house, asshole." Max wouldn't stop growling. He was fixed on the back door like he could see through the walls, his body low, ears back, ready. That's when I realized Max wasn't facing the shed. He was facing the side window. I turned, and there he was, outside the window, soaked, face pale and twisted with something wrong. His eyes locked with mine, and he smiled. Then, the window shattered. Glass exploded inward, and I hit the floor hard, the shotgun skidding from my hands. Wind and rain flooded the room, and I felt something sharp tear into my arm from the glass. Max went berserk. launching himself at the broken window, snapping, snarling, teeth flashing. But the man, he was already gone. I scrambled for the shotgun, pain screaming through my arm. I heard the back door, the handle rattling. I wasn't waiting. I grabbed my phone, my hands slick with rain and blood, and hit the emergency number. Please, please, please. The dispatcher's voice cracked through. 911, what's your emergency? My voice came out raw and shaking. There's a man, he broke my window, he's trying to get in. Max, bark, closer now. Then the back door, it slammed open. The dispatcher's voice was distant, tinny in my ear. Stay calm, officers are on their way. Stay on the line. I pressed myself against the wall, shotgun raised. But there was nothing. No man. The door was wide open, the storm howling through. But he was gone. 10 minutes later, felt like a damn lifetime. The cops arrived. They searched the yard, the shed, the trees, nothing. But they found his footprints. From the fence, to the window, to the back door, and then nothing. The officer, name was Rodriguez, told me they'd keep a patrol car nearby for the night. He tried to reassure me, but I could see it in his eyes. He knew how close I'd come, and he knew whoever that was would have finished it. I sat on the couch, still shaking, my arm bandaged and throbbing. Max lay at my feet, his eyes still fixed on the dark outside. I stroked his head. You saved me, buddy. My voice cracked. You saved me. But here's the thing. When I checked the security camera the next morning, the feed only showed me. Me at the window. Me running. Me locking the doors. The man was never on the tape. And yet, there were handprints on the outside of the glass. And claw marks on the door. So, yeah. I believe dogs know things we don't. They see things we can't. And that night, Max didn't just see a man. He saw something worse. The news had been buzzing all morning. First, the guy in Baton Rouge who got chased through a tunnel, then the woman in Savannah, stalked right outside her window, and just last night, some trucker out in Asheville said he caught a prowler in his backyard during a storm. 3 stories in a row, each creepier than the last. I don't normally believe in bad omens, but I should have. My name is Lucas Miles, and this is how the storm found me. The sky was bruised, deep shades of purple and slate when the first crack of thunder rolled over Boise, Idaho. I had just finished my 3rd coffee of the day, hunched over my laptop in my home office, debugging some client's nightmare of a codebase. The forecast warned of high winds and lightning, typical mountain weather. But I barely glanced at it. It started with the wind, long, howling gusts that rattled the windows. Then came the rain, relentless, hammering the roof in sheets. By 7 p.m., the house felt cocooned in the storm's roar. I barely noticed the first flicker of the lights, just power lines acting up. Happens every season. Then came the creak. Not from the wind, not the house settling. It was above me. I froze, my fingers pausing mid-keystroke. My office is on the 1st floor. Directly above me? The attic. I brushed it off. Wind can shift rafters, right? But the feeling wouldn't leave. My gut twisted and a chill spread across my skin. I tried to shake it off and get back to work, until I heard it again. Creak, slow, heavy, like a footstep. A jolt of fear punched through me. My house isn't big, 2 bedrooms, an attic I never use. No one else lives here. I stood, my chair scraping against the hardwood. My eyes flicked to the ceiling. I could feel my pulse, hard and fast. "Hello?" I called out, hating how thin my voice sounded. No answer. Then, the lights died. The room collapsed into blackness. I felt my way to the desk, my hands shaking as I grabbed my phone. The screen glowed weakly, 5% battery. Damn. I hit the flashlight, and the narrow beam cut through the darkness. The house was dead quiet. Even the storm outside seemed muffled, like the walls were holding their breath with me. Then, a soft thud from the hallway. My heart thrashed. Slowly, I angled the phone toward the open office door. The beam illuminated the hall. Empty. But the floor? There was a wet footprint. Bare. Human. I hadn't been outside. My mouth went dry. I backed toward the far corner of the office, my free hand scrambling in a drawer for something, anything, to defend myself. My fingers closed around a heavy glass paperweight. Then, footsteps, steady, coming down the hall. "Who's there?" I forced out, my voice cracking. No reply. The steps stopped, right outside the door. I felt cold air, like something had drained every ounce of warmth from the room. The hairs on my neck prickled. Then, a soft, rasping whisper. "I see you." I bolted, out of the office, down the hall, heart hammering in my chest. I crashed into the living room, my breath coming in short, ragged gasps. But I didn't hear the footsteps anymore. I heard breathing. Close. Too close. I dropped behind the couch, pressing myself flat to the floor. My phone, still in my hand, was my lifeline. I hit the emergency dial. My voice shook as I whispered to the dispatcher, "Someone's in my house." The operator's voice was calm, steady. "Stay on the line, help is on the way. Can you describe them?" I swallowed. I didn't see them, just I heard them, and footprints, they're inside. The dispatcher's voice was firm. "Lock yourself in a room if you can. Stay quiet. Do you hear them now?" I strained to listen. The breathing was gone, but then the front door creaked, slow, and then a soft click of the latch. Had they left? The dispatcher's voice cut through my confusion. "Stay on the line until officers arrive. Can you stay hidden?" I nodded, my breath shallow. Yeah, I think they're gone." I stayed on the floor, every second dragging like an hour. Then red and blue lights flashed through the windows. A pounding on the door. "Police!" I scrambled up, unlocking the door with shaking hands. 2 officers entered, guns drawn, sweeping the house. Minutes passed. The officer with the buzz cut returned, his face puzzled. "We checked everything. No one's here, no forced entry, nothing disturbed. But..." My voice shook. I heard them. I felt them." He frowned. "We did find something, though. Upstairs." My stomach dropped. "Upstairs?" The officer nodded. "The attic hatch. It was open, and we found this." He held up something that made my blood turn to ice. My spare key. From inside the attic, I felt my knees weaken. I never go up there." The officer's eyes were grim. Whoever was here, they were waiting. And they had your key. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room, every light on, my heart refusing to slow. I kept replaying the moment, the whisper, the footprints. The dispatcher's question kept gnawing at me. "Do you hear them now?" she'd asked. But I had, even when I'd stopped, even when the room had gone silent. I'd heard the breathing through the phone. I moved out of that house the next week. But sometimes, I still hear it. I couldn't stop thinking about that guy on the news, the tech worker from Boise, Lucas Miles. They said he called 911 during the storm, claiming someone was in his house, but when the cops got there, the intruder was gone. No sign of forced entry, except the attic hatch was open. The scariest part, the dispatcher swore she heard breathing through the call, when Lucas wasn't making a sound. It gave me chills, but stories like that, they feel far away until they're yours. My name is Rachel Kim, and on the night of the storm, I learned some monsters don't need to break into your house. They find you in the places you least expect. It was supposed to be a quick shift. 12 hours at Providence Medical Center in Portland, brutal but routine. I was running on 2 cups of coffee and half a granola bar by the time I clocked out. Rain hammered the windows of the hospital lobby, and I could hear the distant rumble of thunder rolling in from the west. I checked my phone. 9:47 p.m. Great. My car was parked way out in the back lot. No umbrella, just my jacket. Typical. I jogged through the downpour, the cold rain soaking through my scrubs instantly. By the time I got to my car, my shoes squelched with every step. I slammed the door shut, shaking from the chill, and turned on the engine. The headlights cut through the rain in weak beams. "Come on, girl," I muttered, giving the dashboard a pat. The old Honda's heater sputtered to life, barely warm, but it was something. The radio buzzed with static before a faint voice broke through. "Severe weather warning, flash flooding expected, travel advisory in effect, reports of power outages, figures." I sighed, shifting into drive. The hospital parking lot disappeared in my rearview mirror as I pulled onto the winding forest road that would take me home. The rain thickened, hammering the windshield in sheets. My wipers strained to keep up, but it felt like driving blind. The tall fir trees lining the road swayed wildly in the wind, their branches whipping like skeletal fingers. And then, thump! The car lurched. My heart jumped as I gripped the wheel. What the hell? The dashboard lit up with the worst possible sight. Check engine. The car slowed, coughing and sputtering. No, I begged, easing it to the side of the road. The engine wheezed once, then died. Just like that, I was alone. Miles from anything, wrapped in darkness, with only the storm for company. I cursed under my breath, grabbing my phone. No signal, just my luck. I tried the ignition again. Nothing. The only sound was the relentless battering of rain. The trees loomed outside, shadows twitching under every lightning flash. That's when I saw him. A figure, in the headlights. I flinched, my stomach knotting. A man was walking down the middle of the road, his body half dripped by the rain. His face was obscured by the hood of a bright, yellow raincoat. The raincoat stood out. Too bright, too clean against the muddy road. His steps were slow, deliberate. He first at me, then slowly to the forest. I don't know why, but my blood ran cold. He wasn't asking for help. He was showing me something. A flash of lightning lit up the trees, and for a split second I saw a shape, another figure, standing between the trees, watching. My heart pounded so hard I felt it in my throat. I snapped back to the man in the raincoat. He hadn't moved, but his head tilted just slightly, like he was listening. No, something's wrong. I reached for the lock button, but the locks clicked. Unlocking. By themselves, I gasped, my body surging with panic. My hand flew to the lock, jamming it back down. I slapped the dashboard, hitting the hazard lights. The man didn't react. Then he turned and walked, not toward me, but around the car. I twisted, my eyes snapping to the side windows. The storm blurred everything into a smear of black and gray, but I could feel him circling. As the crunch of his boots on the wet gravel, a tap on the back window, then silence. My breath was shallow and I felt the tremor in my hand as I raised the phone, the dim screen barely illuminating the car's interior. In the reflection, I saw handprints on the outside of every window, except the driver's side. I couldn't breathe, my eyes locked on the rearview mirror, and there, a face. Right behind me. I screamed, twisting violently, but nothing. The seat was empty, but the handprints remained. Adrenaline hit me like ice water. I didn't think. I threw the car into neutral, slammed my foot on the brake and hit the ignition. The engine roared to life, the headlights flashed forward, the road was empty. The man in the raincoat was gone, but in the trees, the figure was still watching. I floored it. The tires spun, kicking up water and mud, but the car launched forward, tearing down the road. My hands trembled on the wheel, my breath ragged. In my rear view, no one. But in the next flash of lightning, I saw the shape. The yellow raincoat, far down the road, standing perfectly still. I didn't stop, not until I reached my apartment complex, my hands shaking so badly I could barely get the key into my door. I locked myself inside and collapsed onto the floor, my heart still pounding. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. The next morning, my phone buzzed. A news alert. Missing woman identified, 29-year-old found near Providence Forest. My stomach dropped. The photo loaded. It was a nurse from my hospital. The caption read, "Last seen, accepting help from a man in a yellow raincoat." I felt the blood drain from my face. I checked my car. The handprints were gone. I don't know what he wanted, but I know one thing. He wasn't there to help me, and if I had opened my door, I wouldn't be here to tell you this. I saw the news. A nurse in Portland, Rachel Kim, vanished during the storm. Her car was found with muddy handprints on every window. The same night, a guy in Boise, Lucas Miles, called 911 about an intruder hiding in his attic. Before that, a trucker in North Carolina, a woman in Georgia, a man in Louisiana, all during storms. Different states, different people, same terror. The weirdest part? Every report mentioned power outages. That's what got me, because my light started flickering 2 days ago. And tonight, they finally went out. My name is Evan Morrison, and I don't believe in coincidences. But I do believe in storms. The rain slapped against the windows of my townhouse in Charleston, South Carolina, loud enough to drown out my thoughts. Thunder rattled the glass, and each flash of lightning lit the living room in violent bursts of white. The TV was dead, power outage took care of that. No phone signal either. Just me, my bourbon, and the damn storm. I rubbed my eyes, trying to shake the fatigue. The long divorce with my ex-wife Sarah had drained me. Now it was just me in this old house. Too many empty rooms and too many memories. I was halfway through my drink when I noticed something strange. The mirror. It's this big, antique thing, gilded edges, probably worth a fortune once. It came with the house. I always hated it. Something about the way it seemed to watch you. But tonight, the mirror felt wrong. Because my reflection wasn't moving with me. I blinked hard. Maybe I was drunk. I raised my glass to my lips, but the reflection didn't. My heart thudded. Slowly, I lowered the glass. The reflection stayed frozen. And then, it smiled. A wide, twisted grin that felt impossible on my face. I stumbled back, the glass slipping from my hand and shattering on the floor. What the hell? The reflection's eyes, my eyes, locked onto me. And then, it raised its hand and knocked from inside the glass. I couldn't move. My legs were ice. But the sound was real. Thunk, thunk, thunk. Fist pounding from within the mirror. A splintering crack spiderwebbed across the surface from the impact. And then, it started to push through. The glass didn't shatter outward. It bent, stretching like liquid as a hand pushed out from the other side. Pale, cold, with jagged cracks running up the arm like broken porcelain. I felt the room tilt, the air thick with pressure. My chest heaved, panic exploding in every nerve. The thing stepped through. It was me. But wrong. The eyes, too black, too hollow, and that grin, like something that didn't understand how a smile was supposed to work. It stared at me, tilting its head, mimicking every tremor, every breath, like it was learning. Then it spoke, and I heard my own voice. No more doors. The lights flickered, once, twice, then died completely. The room drowned in darkness, except for the faint glow from the mirror. I bolted. My feet pounded down the hall, my socks sliding on the hardwood. I felt the air shift behind me. The thing followed. The hallway lights buzzed and exploded, shards raining down as the storm screamed through the windows. I crashed into the bathroom, my shoulders slamming the door shut behind me. My hands shook as I fumbled for the lock. Click. Darkness. My breath. Panicked. And then, a whisper. Evan? My eyes darted around the room. No windows, just the sink, the toilet, and the mirror above the sink. My reflection was already waiting for me. It pressed both hands against the glass, its face grinning, cracks splitting from its eyes like tears. My voice, warped and hollow, seeped from the mirror. You can't run, we're all here. And suddenly, in the reflection, I saw them. Behind the cracked version of me, shadows began to form. 6 figures. A man, soaked from a stormy tunnel, Mason. A woman, clutching a candle near a window. Caroline. A trucker, holding back his barking dog. Derek, a tech worker, phone clutched to his ear. Lucas, a nurse, dripping and terrified in her car. Rachel, and me. Their eyes were empty, their mouths opened, and they spoke together in a voice that wasn't mine, but all of ours. "We've been waiting for you, Evan." The mirror shattered outward, but the glass didn't cut, it pulled. I felt my body wrench forward, the air vanishing from my lungs. Hands, so many hands, gripped me, cold and slick, dragging me toward the shards. My reflection, smiling, I hit the glass and went through. Everything went black. I woke up to the sound of sirens. Red and blue flashed through the shards of the broken mirror. I saw the cops enter the room, their radios crackling. "We've got another one, same MO as the others, no signs of forced entry." A flashlight beam swept the room, but I wasn't there, only the mirror. From inside the mirror, I could see them, but they couldn't see me. I slammed my fists on the inside of the glass, but no sound escaped, and in the reflection, behind me, the others were waiting, their faces, empty, cracked, and smiling. I felt my mouth move, against my will, whispering to the police in their radios. Another outage, another storm, and another friend. The officer's voice crackled back. "Copy. Another power surge, just like the others." The cop's partner, frowning at the broken mirror, muttered, "6 storms? 6 vanishings? What the hell is going on?" The radio hissed, and from it, a whisper that shouldn't have been there. "The storm is just the door." And from inside the mirror, we smiled, because we knew they'd be joining us soon. Storms can bring chaos, floods, winds, and darkness. But sometimes what we truly fear isn't what's outside, it's what we can't see until it's too late. Through these 6 stories, we've witnessed ordinary people, Mason, Caroline, Derek, Lucas, Rachel, and Evan, face the unimaginable. Their experiences weren't just about monsters or shadows, but about choices, instincts, and survival. And from their terror, we can learn valuable lessons that could one day save your life. 1. Trust your instincts. Every protagonist felt something was wrong. Mason heard footsteps, Caroline sensed a presence, Derek trusted his dog's warning, and Rachel refused a stranger's help. They didn't always understand their fear, but they listened to it. In life, our instincts are often our first defense. If something feels off, act on it. Better safe than sorry. 2. Darkness hides more than shadows. Power outages and storms masked the true dangers. An intruder in Lucas's attic, a figure outside Caroline's window, and something far worse behind Evan's reflection. When the lights go out, fear rises. But the greatest threat isn't the dark itself, it's what's lurking inside it. Always stay aware of your surroundings and don't let darkness cloud your judgment. 3. Technology won't always save you. Several characters reached for their phones, but signal loss, battery failure, or sudden outages left them helpless. Technology is a tool, but it's no substitute for preparation. Keep backup power, emergency contacts, and, most importantly, a plan for what you'll do if help can't reach you. 4. Lock your doors. Real and metaphorical intruders found their way through tunnels, windows, and even attics. But danger isn't always physical. Sometimes we let things into our lives, people, habits, or choices, that invite harm. Locking your doors isn't just about security systems. It's about boundaries. Know what and who you let in. 5. Animals know. Pay attention, Derek's dog Max sensed the intruder before he saw anything. Animals have instincts we can't explain, and their warnings are often life-saving. Whether it's a barking dog, a startled cat, or even birds going silent, pay attention. Nature often sees danger before we do. 6. Some doors should stay closed. Evan's mirror wasn't just glass, it was a doorway. But not all doors are meant to be opened. Curiosity is natural, but boundaries between safe and unsafe, real and unknown, exist for a reason. If you ever face something beyond your understanding, remember, some mysteries aren't meant to be solved, only survived. A message from Enigma of the Unknown. Thank you for joining us on this chilling journey through 6 storms, 6 stories that remind us how close danger can be. But remember, every story, no matter how terrifying, teaches us something valuable. At Enigma of the Unknown, we share these tales not just to scare you, but to make you think about your instincts, your choices, and your safety. If you found these stories thrilling, eerie, or thought-provoking, we invite you to like, comment, and subscribe for more journeys into the unknown. And most importantly, share your stories with us. Have you ever faced something you couldn't explain? A moment where fear became real? Because sometimes, stay scariest stories are the true ones. Until next time, stay safe, stay sharp, and remember, the unknown is always closer than you think.